So, thank you for coming to hear this. Donatella and I just found out what we're talking about, and happily it's not the same thing. What I'm talking about is a little bit of a look to the future. I think Ben last night talked about the present of the internet, in which, yes, Britney Spears is more popular than anything or anyone. But I see sort of a transformation of the mass media space. Germany is interesting because it may be the last modern society. And as the last modern society, I think it also has one of the best functioning mass media spaces. But I think this is going to be replaced, perhaps as the last replacement, but I think it will be replaced. The United States is the sort of first late modern society in which the mass media is crumbling rather dramatically before our very eyes, and is being replaced not just by a different media space, but by a different media logic. And so I invite you to think that what's different about the internet is not that the screen is so small and the content is so similar, but actually the logic that will begin to appear more and more is a very different media logic, a very different discursive grammar, if you will. So the question mark, I think, applies to the present. I hope I can see just far enough into the future to help us all imagine that change. So let's start a little bit with some conventional stuff on public spheres. This is my paraphrase of Habermas, social spaces where independent public opinion can develop. Independence is, of course, the key issue here. How independent is public opinion ever from commerce and from state filtering? But these are the issues that seem to be of interest to the creation of these public spaces. Access, of course. But then once you have access, what are you paying attention to? Is it Britney Spears or is it the election of Barack Obama? Or both? And then how free are those spaces from government and commercial intrusion, which is also an interesting question. I think Lawrence Lessig was originally going to be here, and his work on copyright and the transformation of property in the digital age, I think, is a very interesting question of who owns content out there in media land. I'm not going to talk about it, but it's an important question. Interest aggregation, I mean, in sort of the mass media society, we have groups and parties and the media, of course, having a kind of an abstracted conversation that sometimes includes people, but very often does not. And then how are differences resolved? Well, we have formal mechanisms, government and sometimes media, for resolving them, but sometimes we have differences at street level that need to be resolved as well. And then, of course, what are the resources available for people to organize collective action independent of the official structures of public participation? So let me begin with some cautions, some things I would encourage us all to avoid in terms of generalizing about digital media. Yes, much that travels over the internet is trivial, shallow, and obscene. But much that travels over the internet is also high-quality, large-scale public communication and action. So let's keep both in mind and not pick one over the other. And here's an interesting one that I'm beginning to work on these days, which is that often you don't see much of a pairing between the quality of a mass media system and the quality of a digital media system in the same society. Okay? I don't know quite what to do with this yet, but I don't see much association between the public sphere qualities of mass and digital media in many societies. It's not a complete separation, but it's an interesting, problematic difference. So here's Iran. Can we turn down a couple of lights so we can see Iran more clearly? This is the blogosphere, the Farsi language blogosphere, thanks to my friend John Kelly at Morningside Analytics. What's interesting about this is that Iran is one of the most censored mass media systems on the planet, ranking right up there with North Korea. And yet what we have is a very vibrant blogosphere, digital media system. Much of this actually is being served from within Iran. It's not all being served from Los Angeles in the expatriate Iranian communities. What we see here are, of course, as you would predict, some very active religious clusters. These are very conservative religious clusters. Some mixed networks having to do with cooking and so on, travel. Very active poetry going on. But what's interesting is a very active sphere of reformist political discourse, including the blog of one of the leading reformers in the country, not that far removed in cyberspace from the most conservative political blog in the country, that run by the current president. Now, if you're interested in seeing how censored this is compared to their mass media system, John did a very interesting look at it. If you try and imagine yourself inside Iran looking out at the blogosphere, it turns out that these are the only sites that are blocked. These are the sites that are available inside the country. So let's open up our thinking about the relationship between digital media and mass media a little bit. So this is a conclusion. If you are online right now and Google this title, Mapping Iran's Online Public, you can download this for free and see lots of other very cool pictures. But the Iranian bloggers include members of Hezbollah, teenagers in Tehran, retirees in Los Angeles, and more. It's a very interesting and vibrant sphere in a country that we may not think of as having a vibrant public space. Meanwhile, other societies, even those with very high quality, relatively speaking, mass media systems, such as Germany, even though I'm sure everyone in this room has their personal complaints about the German media, you're actually doing fairly well. Many of these kinds of countries are not so developed in cyberspace, interestingly enough. And here you are, here's Germany. As you can see, knitting is very well defined. Gardening is quite well defined. Parenting is very well defined in terms of key clusters in the German blogosphere. But this is kind of a mess here. This politics, commerce, and actually one of the biggest clusters has been removed, pornography. So the definitions of what is going on in the German blogosphere are emergent and not as clearly defined as, for example, Iran. So let me offer a framework for locating societies in cyberspace. Seems to me that the key to sort of thinking about, and this is work in progress, so go ahead and have a take at it at the end. But if we have sort of modern social structure, and I think Ben Barber has talked about strong democracy, well, I'm talking about strong institutions of various kinds in public life, schools and others, and a high-quality public service media, and that's the key here, the public service, not commercial media. Seems to me that the internet is less central in general as a public sphere. The thing that is, however, problematic for me is that globally, youth media preferences are beginning to be expressed around a different kind of communication logic than we get in a mass media relationship between sender and receiver, producer of content and consumer of content. So the youth cultures are beginning to create waves even in a nicely modernist German media system. So let's just quickly, this is my absolute wild over-the-top take on modernity. 3 points, 3 bullet points on modernity. First, we have membership organizations, parties, unions, churches, defined largely in terms of social hierarchy. And the communication process, both within most of these organizations and outward into the society, is generally one way, from the top down. Late modern society, post-industrial society, again, as I said, the U.S. kind of arrived there rather early in the 80s, late 70s. is more likely to be organized in terms of social networks which challenge hierarchical organization because they're distributed in affiliation and relationship terms. Young people in particular don't like to join, but they will affiliate in large numbers. They will network in large numbers through participatory media, not one-way mass communication, but large-scale participation in both the production and the consumption of content. Very different kind of media logic. So now, I'm going to go and show some more pictures in a minute, but this is my last sort of heavily bulleted point. If you put the transformation from modernity to late modernity in those social terms that I just outlined, along with the media logic that is implied in that transformation, here's what you get. The logic of the modern mass media system is largely one-way transmission of information that is filtered heavily by institutional gatekeepers, from editors at newspapers to press officials in governments, aimed at mass audiences in which discussion takes place offline in cafes and schoolrooms and places like this. The participatory media logic favors interactive production and sharing of content. And I'll show you what that looks like in a minute. Crowdsourcing of information. Wikipedia is a good example of crowdsourced information. So you have Encyclopedia Britannica up here, which is heavily edited and transmitted to a mass audience, and then you have Wikipedia down here, and both are about the same in quality. Only this one is richer, broader, and more up-to-date. Audiences emerge in viral networks, and they can be as large as mass media audiences. They are just constituted differently. And often the discussions occur both on and offline. Processing of that information. One thing I'd like us to actually imagine is that working too hard to figure out what's online and what's offline is kind of a waste of time. Doesn't matter. It's both. And of course, the two logics interact, particularly in societies such as the US, which are in serious transition from that media system to this one. You get interactivity. One of my favorite examples is reality TV, which is also one of my worst examples. What accounts for the popularity of reality TV? It was an early moment in a mass media system where you introduced a participatory media logic in which audiences, primarily young audiences, actually helped determine the outcomes of the programs they were watching. So that was an early glimpse of why participatory media is so compelling for young people. So in the US, the mass media is in serious decline. Some people say it's because, and here's the picture of the nightly news on the free networks over the last 26 years. It has plummeted rather like the stock market. And you can think of it a bit like the stock market. People don't have faith in it. People don't believe it, the news that is. People originally thought, well, they're all going to cable. We have so many cable news programs. Well, it turns out cable has peaked and has begun its decline as well. So they're not all on cable. The question then becomes, where are they? Where are the audience? Well, one thing that's also accompanied this decline is the number of people going newsless. It's not that people are going somewhere else to get news, and this is a hard one to grasp, but people are beginning to think about information that's useful to them that is not news. So that's the news about news. There are other kinds of information that are just as valuable, more valuable to people because they've helped participate in the production, the sharing, the sourcing of that information, and they're not journalists. They are citizens. So the people going newsless over the last 10 years, the biggest increase in newslessness is in the young demographic, who are precisely those who have adopted a participatory media logic most readily. So what does participatory media begin to look like? It looks like this. Oh, I think I got bumped off. So Axel, do you know what the password is?
Yeah.
Oh, it says I'm still on, so let's see. Yep, I'm still on. So maybe this is just off. Let's give it a moment. While we're waiting to see if it wants to go there, this is a YouTube video which is actually a compilation of all the times that John McCain said something in the last couple of months that turned out not to be true. It's kind of a long video, actually. And it shows all of these things together in a way that the news almost never does. And it's been viewed the same number of times that a typical nightly network news show is viewed. And that's just views on YouTube, which is by no means the only source for watching this video. So if this thing has not totally screwed up my computer.
Try pressing that.
The which?
Play button.
The play button here, no, I have to click through to YouTube actually to play it. Well, actually the rest of this multimedia show is actually perhaps going to be delivered by, me. Okay. This could be the future of news. So I tell you what, let's just hope we can get back to the slideshow and not look at that one. So one of the things that, the main point here is that you can go through a lot of these sort of grassroots produced, distributed, shared, mashed up, commented and blogged upon videos and see audiences that are the size of mass media audiences. So let's turn for a moment to the digital media profile of this current election. And I want to talk about participatory media, this new logic that I think the digital age is suited for. It's also suited, you can reproduce a network news site online, but it's not very interesting to do that. In this election, according to a recent Pew study, 40% of Americans have gotten news about the election in the U.S. from the internet. 23% of Americans have received emails urging them to support a candidate or to go online and check your email to talk to friends about the election. And 10% have actually made campaign contributions, making Barack Obama's campaign one of the wealthiest in human history because of the numbers of small donations that come in through his internet pledges. So to paraphrase the Bill Clinton 1992 mantra of "It's the economy, stupid," which turns out to be even bigger mantra this year, it's the internet. And I'm going to try and convince you that it's the internet that's going to decide the outcome of this election. Well, actually, the economy will, but it is being discussed more actively online than many people imagine. This is a sort of a frozen snapshot of the end of the primaries in June of this year, Barack Obama's YouTube views, this is just YouTube. There are a half dozen other sites where you can watch videos, so the rating system is still being assembled for the internet. 40 million YouTube views for Barack Obama, some 10 million for Hillary Clinton, and John McCain is somehow flatlining here in terms of, he didn't get it. John McCain missed the internet. He also missed email. He doesn't know how to work email. And that's too bad for him, because this is, I think, an important feature of what's going on with this election.
Was that any video with, sort of McCain or Obama appearing in?
Right, yeah. And these things are hard to assemble, but this was sort of our best reckoning on viewership. Here's an interesting set of facts. Many people think the internet is just reproducing the old media world. Well, my guess is what this means is that for some people, they are going to the New York Times online, as I just did during our break. But for many people, they're getting an entirely different kind of informational relationship out of the internet. Most people don't agree that it's the loudest voices who kind of shout at us through the mass media and turn many people off to the mass media who are prevailing online. And here's the most interesting bit of this one. Does the internet help you feel more personally connected to a candidate, as we know television can do? People say, no, I don't feel more personally connected to Barack Obama because I'm experiencing him online. What I feel is more personally involved in the campaign experience. It's subtle but an important difference. Think about, I feel more involved. 74% feel more involved in the experience of the election process, not the experience of Barack Obama. Young voters, there are a couple of interesting facts. Similarly, these are under 35s, feel that they're more engaged in the election process. And 23% have sent or received some kind of information. And most of them identify with the Democrats and participate in the Obama campaign. So my argument is that it's really young voters who have adopted a different media logic. And here's a problematic framing of the Obama campaign, since that's the campaign that's used the internet most effectively so far. I believe that Obama needs young voters to win this election. Although the economy may tank to an extent that it would be impossible for Obama to lose the election, but I think he needs young voters, of whom there are many more involved in the election this year than in the recent 20 or 30-year past, 40-year past. Part of their engagement in the election requires participatory media. It requires it. Obama can't reach them through TV ads because they're not watching TV. On the other hand, Obama has hired a staff of highly paid professional communicators who, in my humble opinion, have ruined our political process in every country in which they have deployed their talents. Public relations professionals of the sort that Habermas warned us against. They work for him. Most of them are in this category, and they will become more and more risk-averse as the election draws near, keeping Obama on message, beginning to close down the interactivity process because you can't control it. Part of participatory media is you can't control it. The great thing about mass media is it's all about controlling it. So here's the question. Will the internet campaign become restricted as a result of the command and control media logic that runs through all campaigns? The same logic that kept Al Gore in 2000 from talking about the environment because his professional consultants told him that it wasn't a winning issue. So let me close with some short characteristics of participatory media. One is, I think it's viral. You can assemble large audiences. This video has drawn an audience of some 18 million people. And again, we seem to be having a slow take, but if it doesn't come up,
You can see.
you can see. This is will.i.am from the Black Eyed Peas. He used his same talents that he uses to produce music videos to produce an Obama music video, which went viral very quickly, and everyone talked about it. So it's not just that you look at it on your small screen, but I show it in my classes, and students want to talk about this video. Students talk about it in their own settings, in cafes and in their apartments and so on. So well, we're going to have to wait for it. So there's the viral nature of the audience. The mass audience is channeled and targeted. The digital audience is virally networked, which is a very different principle of audience aggregation. So the second principle that I want to talk about is that you can interact with events in real time, and large numbers of people can interact with those events. So this video is an example, but the next slide that's coming up here, which we may never get to see lamentably, is a slide from Obama's Berlin speech, which I was happy to be able to attend, along with a couple of 100,000 other people. It was quite an interesting moment. And what I noticed when I went home and got online, I suppose I could have gotten online during the speech and had the complete experience, but as I went home and got online, I discovered that people were talking about it in large numbers. And so there's a slide here which I will have to describe to you, which is the blogging that went on. This is a slow connection.
It was a creed written into the founding documents, declared and suggested of a nation. Yes, we can. It was whispered by slaves and abolitionists as they blazed the trail toward freedom. Yes, we can. Yes, we can. It was sung. It was sung by immigrants.
So you get the idea. There are a lot of things that I could talk about, but time is running short with this video. You know, the normal campaign ad is 30 seconds. This is 4 minutes, and it's gotten 18 million voluntary views and counting. The figure you saw was on YouTube alone. So here's a blogging pulse, if you will, in terms of, you know, this was captured about a month ago. It's 2 million more views have accumulated since then. We've had something like almost 6,000 blogs out there talking about this, lots more commentary, and it's gone on. This video has been the subject of commentary for some time. There's different kinds of discussion that go on. I'm not going to play this because time's running short, but go ahead and Google "No, you can't." And this is sort of the McCain, anti-McCain version of "Yes, we can." That's actually an anti-McCain ad. It was produced by people sort of at grassroots level. It's actually barely naked video, I think it's called, or barely naked politics. So you also have large-scale real-time interaction with events, such as the Obama Berlin speech. And what's interesting is that since cyberspace knows few bounds, there are language boundaries. And one of the things that made that Iranian blogosphere easy to capture is that Farsi is a fairly well geographically defined language. But here you've got the discussion that went on around Obama was popular in French, German, Italian, and Danish, as well as English. At the same time that this sort of logic of participatory media is emerging prominently in the U.S. among younger demographics, and I think in other countries as well. The German public service media, for example, has lost its young viewership. It's gone. And where's it going? I mean, the German blogosphere is yet to capture the interest of young Germans for a variety of reasons. The telecom monopoly lasts way too long here, and internet still remains less accessible in Germany than it is in other places. But what's interesting is that even in the US, power and control of communication go together so closely that the mainstream mass media command and control logic still dominates government process and campaigns. So even the relatively open Obama campaign early on, when Obama and more importantly his political consultants realized that he was a viable candidate, they shut down a Facebook network of 400,000 friends of Obama because they couldn't control it. They asked to control it or share the control of it, and the owner of that network said, no, actually it's ours. It's the 400,000 of us who joined together freely in support of you, and we really want to remain independent of you but support you at the same time. That was too little control for the Obama campaign, so they killed it.
We should.
I'm done. So conventional ads dominate viral networks, and the question is, will youth begin to run away from this? If you look at the early, this is a sort of a Nielsen rating on Obama views versus McCain views, and this is early up till June. Obama was dominating the viral space, absolutely overwhelming McCain online viewing. And then suddenly, after the Berlin speech, McCain figured out how to prime this space. He ran an ad in the US called Celebrity, in which he asked, do you want to just elect a celebrity who can draw 200,000 people in Berlin, somebody like Paris Hilton for president? And that went viral. And then Obama came along. McCain was asked at a press conference not too long thereafter how many houses he owned, and he couldn't really remember. So McCain Obama ran an ad on the number of houses McCain owned, and that went viral. And recently, the viral space has been sort of appropriated by ads. So to conclude, here's some generalizations. I think as modernist institutions change and decline, media audiences and their discourse styles also change in the ways I've described. And digital networking technologies can enable large-scale publics to form around a different sort of discourse. That may raise questions of coherence and credibility. Many adults hate that stuff because it hasn't been screened, it hasn't been filtered, it hasn't been legitimized. But I think it's still something that is going to be our future and needs to be addressed. And all systems, modernist and late modernist, are losing youth to the mass media command and control content and consume logic of conventional media and transforming to a participatory media logic. Thank you very much.